Hello and welcome to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, a resource center located in Naperville for people in career transition. Career Center will bring human resource professionals and other experts together to provide job search tips to assist you as you search for your next success. Later on Career Center, psychologist and Community Career Center volunteer Ginger Neenan will join me at the table to discuss how being in a job transition affects the way we think of ourselves. But first, I'm happy to have career coach Ken Kuchar join me at the table.
Thank you.
Ken, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Ken, before we delve into the importance of networking, I want to have you share a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing.
Okay. Well, for the last 24 years, I've been a career coach with 4 different outplacement firms, and we are hired by companies that are doing downsizing, and as part of their exit package, companies provide employees with our services. So I've been doing that over 24 years. Before that, I was in human resources for 12 years. And a long time ago, I started out in the mental health field. I have a master's in counseling psychology, married a couple of kids, and live in Downers Grove.
Okay, great. And so now you're doing, is it Moving Careers Forward? That's the name of your...
I work for the Impact Group.
The Impact Group,
yeah.
Okay.
And we, again, every day work with the people on career transition goals to give them an advantage in the job market and make sure they're putting their best foot forward and to give them an advantage in the marketplace.
And the Impact Group is located, are they?
They're based in St. Louis.
Okay.
But we have an office in the Sears Tower. I still call it the Sears Tower. And we have an office in Deerfield as well.
Okay, all right, well, great. So let's talk about networking. It's so important in a job search. Why is that?
Well, if I've been asked once, I've been asked a million times. I've sent out 50 resumes, 500 resumes. I haven't gotten a response. And invariably, I'll ask them, have you used your network? Have you leveraged your contacts in that regard? And most people say no. And conservatively, I think each time a person applies for a job, there's probably 300 or 400 other applicants. And minimum, there's probably a dozen people that have someone greasing the skids, putting a good word in for them, helping to advocate their candidacy. And without that, as good as your resume is, it's probably going to be number 13, which might be enough, but without that support, you're behind the 8 ball.
And I know you mentioned 300 to 400 applicants, and I mean, there were a time back in like 2008 when we used to hear 600 and 700.
Oh yeah, easily, yeah. When I was in HR, we would get 500 each ad.
So I know one of the questions that I get asked a lot at the Career Center is, I send my resume in and I don't hear anything back, but you being in HR, when you have 400, 500, 600 applications, you're just not going to get back to people. So how do you try to help people understand that? It's just not going to, that's not going to happen.
By the way, when I was in human resources and I ran an ad, I would always feel obligated. Yeah, it was a print ad. And I would always feel obligated to get back to people one way or another, and usually it was a form letter. And now some companies, a few, send out postcards or they send out emails saying, we got your resume, we'll call you if you're the appropriate candidate. But most companies do not correspond at all, and they just don't have the time or resources to do that. It's unfortunate, and it's frustrating for the job seeker.
But they shouldn't take it personally.
No,
a lot of companies,
not at all.
Yeah. No. So why is it important? Is it, if you're number 13, you've got to figure out a way to get yourself up to number 5 or 6 so you can get in for maybe a phone screen? Or...
Yeah, the ideal is your best friend takes your resume and walks it to the hiring manager or the human resources person and said, this person is really good, you ought to take a look at him or her. And it doesn't always happen, but other people can provide other types of support. They can make a call on your behalf. They can send an email. They can give you a leg up somehow. They may know somebody else within the company besides the hiring manager or human resources person. So as often as you can do that, the better. And of course, LinkedIn, we're going to talk about that, is a great tool to find out who in my network works for that company or knows somebody in that company. to give you an advantage on that.
So if someone doesn't feel comfortable networking, what would you say to that person? Because you really have to
Well,
have that
we were
comfort
joking
level.
before. My panned answer is get over it. We all need to do it. Now, it's for people that are shyer. You start out slow. You use LinkedIn a little bit more, maybe the phone, and work up to feeling more confident. When I started networking, when I was in my job search years ago, I felt very uncomfortable, very nervous, very insecure about the whole networking. But the more I did it, the more confident I became, and it got to be kind of exciting and kind of fun.
Well, it builds relationships. I mean, there's a lot of good things that come out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
What is the best way one should utilize their network?
Well, everybody that you know, everybody that you come in contact with or connect with on LinkedIn potentially has information that will help you in your candidacy, in your job search. A tip, a person that they know people that you don't know. They may hear about a job lead. Today I was in a meeting and somebody's next door neighbor works for a company that might be of interest to someone else in the group. So people can provide varying levels of support. They may not be able to do anything, but often they will be able to do something.
And that, again, is important for you to look at those different ways to use your network so that you can get your foot in the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I overall, looking at the big picture, we also talk about how a job search is a sales process. And you're trying to build brand awareness and visibility so that the more people who know about you, the better the chances that someone will think of you when they hear something and they'll share it with you. So every day you should be building brand awareness and visibility.
So is networking like selling yourself?
Well,
Would you say
job
that?
search is a sales position, a sales process. You are selling a set of services to potential customers. You're hoping for a sales call or an interview. You're hoping to demonstrate that you have what it takes to do the job. So it's very much like a sales process. It's not a hard sell, but it's a more relationship and again, demonstrating that you can do the job.
And is there, one or two tips that you could share? Again, if you're not comfortable, should you just start at attending maybe a social event at a chamber event, or just kind of take baby steps into it?
Well, there's a lot of good networking groups that exist all through the Chicagoland area, including yours at the Career Resource Center, or Community Career Center. I get all these
There's
transition.
a few of us.
Yeah, Community Career Center. And you can observe. There's no need to participate at the level that you're comfortable. And I think the more you go, the more you get to know people, the more confident you'll become.
Can networking further your career? So once you've landed that success, is it still important to continue to network?
Yeah, you've got quite a bit of capital, really, human capital, that you're connected to should you run into a problem, should you come into a situation that you've got no experience. Someone in the network that you've built over that time may have the expertise to help you out.
Let's talk a little bit about percentage of jobs that are either found through networking, or is that still relatively high?
It's the same as it always has been, even with LinkedIn and all the electronic tools. Maybe as many as 60 to 65% of the jobs that are filled every day are never posted anywhere, an agency or the internet, anywhere. So they're being filled by referrals, word of mouth. And so that's another reason why you need to network. You want to be in that system so that someone will think of you.
So the hidden job market.
Right. Yeah, most jobs are not posted at all, ever. And they're filled by referrals.
So it's really important to job search, or to network.
Network is critical. It really is critical.
So you got to feel comfortable. You got to get out there. You got to meet people. You got to feel comfortable talking about yourself and your skills and getting that elevator speech together.
Yeah, being able to explain to people who you are and what you do and how you add value and who your target companies are, what the titles are applicable to you. In those networking groups that we talked about, again, including yours, they work best when everybody in the group is thinking the two things. One is, how can I help Kim, and how can Kim help me? And if everybody is thinking that way, everybody is listening very intently to people's introductions and figuring out, is there a way I can help Kim? And then when I make my introduction, hopefully they're thinking of the same thing.
Right, right. Let's talk a little bit about digital networking. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Before we talk about LinkedIn, what about Facebook and Twitter? Are those?
I don't highly recommend Facebook and Twitter. I think people who are comfortable can opt to use them, but most job seekers do not use Twitter or Facebook.
But they still need to keep their accounts clean and, you know, watch things that they say. And
yeah, don't post anything objectionable. There are stories about people losing a job offer when the employer saw them in some compromising picture.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would keep that clean.
Right, right. Yeah. So LinkedIn, still very valuable, a great resource, a good networking tool.
The best.
Yeah.
That's the tool of choice electronically. We were talking, I think there's at least 450 million members, and it's growing all the time.
When did LinkedIn start? How long has that been out now?
It's been at least 12 years, I think maybe 15 years, somewhere in that area. And I remember, I think, early on, and over time, I've got 1,100 contacts, which I never set out to get.
Right.
And sometimes they're very useful, and sometimes people come to me asking for help. So one of my mottos is you want to organize your contacts, and that's a great way to organize your contacts is to connect with people on LinkedIn, the people that you know. So organizing your contacts, contacting your contacts, making sure everybody that you know is aware of your situation and what are you looking for, and maybe who your target companies are, or the type of people that you'd be interested in talking to, like a general manager or a VP of sales. And then expand your contacts. So organize your contacts, contact your contacts, and expand your contacts.
Yeah, and then you have that tier level with LinkedIn, the first tier. Or the,
yeah, if I invite you to connect, you're my first level contact, and I can send you an in-mail. You can look at my contacts, I can look at yours, and then all of your contacts become my second level contacts.
Wow, well, thank you so much. I cannot believe we are out of time.
I can't believe it either.
I know. It's been nice talking to you, Ken.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you.
Now, don't go away, because when we come back, psychologist and Community Career Center volunteer Ginger Neenan will join me at the table to talk about how being in a job search affects the way we think of ourselves. We'll be right back after these important public service announcements.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Good things happen at the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. Experience more than 25,000 acres where native plants and animals make their home. Discover the scenic beauty of over 60 forest preserves containing forests, prairies, and wetlands. Explore the wonder of changing seasons along 145 miles of trails. Get outside and discover the good things that happen when you visit DuPage Forest Preserves. The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, where good things happen.
Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, and I am thrilled to have joining me at the table Ginger Neenan. Welcome, Ginger.
Thanks, Kim.
So good to have you.
It's great to be
seeing
here.
you in this environment opposed to at the Community Career Center.
Right, right.
So before we get started, let's tell our viewing audience a little bit about Ginger.
Okay, well, I spent 28 years in a public suburban high school, and I like to tell people that I saw it all, but I realize every day that I didn't. But it was a wonderful career and a wonderful experience, and I feel like I acquired some skills in terms of helping people with communication and motivation and organization even, that have carried over into some volunteer endeavors since I retired a couple of years ago.
And you were a school psychologist,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I know you've been volunteering not only at our organization, but also others where you help people in transition, and you've been doing a great job.
Yeah, and the job transition part of it really calls to me, and I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed working with clients that range from right out of college to people who are in their second or third or fourth career, and they're all interesting, and they all have wonderful stories to tell, and it's been very enriching.
Yeah, I know that we have you meet with a number of people at the center, and you know, one of the several things that in terms of what our clients are dealing with, but one of the things is just how being in a transition, a job transition, affects your self-esteem and your self-confidence. And I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Can you share a couple of things?
Well, you know, job transition is an exciting period in your life. It's also a really tough period, a very exciting period. There's a lot of different factors that go into preparing yourself emotionally for a job transition. In most of our lives, when we're working, we're so busy, we don't have time to think about self-esteem or self-confidence. We're just trying to keep the 15 balls in the air that we have to keep in the air to just keep ourselves going. You know, family and work and relationships and taking care of ourselves and taking care of our homes. And there's not time to worry about job transition. But suddenly you find yourself in that position and you think, wow, I have all the time in the world. I'll be able to get a new job. I'll be able to get everything on my to-do list done. And maybe this will be a pretty great time. Well, it could work out that way. It doesn't usually.
Right.
Usually people find that they get up in the morning, they have their coffee, they sit down at the computer, they do their emails, they say that I'm going to work on job transition. It's 5 o'clock, and they look back, and not very much has gotten done at all. Yeah. So, and that, you know, that takes a hit on your self-esteem too. So, there's some ideas, and we have some things that we want to suggest today that might be helpful for that.
Yeah, well, let's hear a couple of those.
Well, time management and goal setting. It seems to really come down to that. And again, when you're so busy and you've got so many things going on in your work life, you don't spend a lot of time setting goals. But we find that the more precise and the more specific you can be about goal setting, the more successful you're going to be in that area. So we suggest to people that whatever venue they choose, some people like a digital calendar, some people like just paper and pencil, but whatever works for them is fine. So we suggest that they get really good about writing down what they need to do. Everybody's got the same long-term goal that comes to CCC. They want to find a new job opportunity where they're feeling good about what they're doing and they feel like they can contribute to the company.
So that's your end result, that's your goal at the very top of the list.
That's the long-term goal. And short-term goals really are the same too. A job plan is essentially the same for everybody with some minor modifications. Everybody's got to work on their networking, as the previous guest discussed. Everybody's got to work on their applications. Everybody's got to work on their contacts. Everybody's got to work on their applications. Everybody's got to work on their behavioral interviewing and practicing their stories. So it's a series of activities that are more common, more similar than dissimilar.
Are your goals the same every day, or should you have different goals each day?
It depends on the day. You know, sometimes...
And should you fill up your whole day with those goals?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that some people think that they should, and they come into us and they say, well, I start at 9 in the morning and I don't stop till 5 or 5:30, but how much are you getting really done? And so we feel like people simply cannot work that hard and that intensely. So we say 3 to 5 hours is ideal. If you can put 3 to 5 hours per day, and every day is a little bit different, and Monday might be in the morning, Tuesday might be in the afternoon, depending upon what your other responsibilities are. But as long as you have a schedule, it's in your calendar, that's your job transition time. That's your work. And if we can equate work with job transition and make sure that we don't slip out of the lines in any way along those lines, then people can get things done. Sometimes you have to change things around. It's that way in the work world, just like it is in job transition. But for the most part, you make a schedule and you stick to it.
Yeah, so create your schedule, stick to it, allow yourself a break like you would at work, but have those goals and follow through those goals.
We suggest that people take a 5 or 10 minute break at the end of a block of activity. Sometimes we find, and this is a trick that people need to learn because sometimes they don't realize how long things take. They'll equate 20 minutes for say, storytelling practice. And they'll be in the middle of their second story and they wanted to really practice maybe 4 of the stories. Or networking, they think that they'll spend 20 minutes on that and they really haven't gotten very far. So we have people at the beginning of this process, of the beginning of time management and goal setting, say to themselves, I'm going to see how long this takes me. Because that's just another frustration. If you find that you've gone 20 minutes and you've done what you said you were going to do and you didn't get the job done, that's another frustration. So at the beginning, sometimes you just have to take some time and see how long each activity is going to take. So that's a process at the very beginning to figure out how long things are going to take. And once you know how long things generally take or how long it takes you to put time into a particular activity, then it's easier to translate it to your calendar, whether it's digital or paper, and get it down from 9 to 12 if that's what you decided is your goal for that day, or whether it be from 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 or whatever you decide. Just as long as you're doing what you say you're going to do, you split your activities. And what we tell people is it needs to be measurable, it needs to be objective, and it needs to be so that if somebody else was to read your calendar, they would be able to do it the same that you could.
Yeah, and kind of like at work, right?
Exactly,
like you want to just kind of follow the same thing.
Exactly.
What are some things people can do during this time so that they feel better about themselves?
Well, there's opportunities that you should still continue doing the activities that you enjoy. It's very important that you keep the balance in your life. So you've got your time devoted to job responsibilities, to your job transition time.
And no more than 3 to 5 hours.
3 to 5 hours a day, depending upon what the day is, what you have on deck that needs to be accomplished, and where you are in the process. But it's very important to keep that balance in your life. When you were in a regular 9 to 5 kind of situation, there was your time for exercising, there was your time for spending time with your children, your family dinners, all of the things that go into creating a balanced life. Those kinds of activities, continuing with them in as much of a traditional way as you did before, will certainly help with your self-confidence and your self-esteem, and keep your stress level at a little more regular level.
Do you find that if someone has been put in a situation where they suddenly lost their job, their self-esteem and self-confidence is affected clearly a little bit differently? Or
Absolutely, absolutely. And what happens there is kind of an interesting phenomenon. We all have that little voice in our heads and sometimes you know who the voice is, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's somebody else, sometimes you don't know who it is. But it's that voice in your head that makes those negative statements about who you are and what you're capable of, and sometimes when you have a blow like that, if you lose your job suddenly, or if something sudden happens where there's a significant change in the way you spend your days, that voice, somehow the volume gets turned up quite a bit. So it's something that we find that people really struggle with. And so those negative self-thoughts tend to be a little more intrusive. And so that's certainly a concern for us. And we use a really simple technique at CCC and around the world. Everybody kind of has a technique that's similar to this. But it's very simple to implement, but it's hard to do. We suggest that people carry around a notebook or whatever vehicle, again, digital or paper, whatever works for you, and they'll write the negative thought on one side and then a positive thought to
kind of counter that.
Exactly, exactly. And it takes a while to figure out. You're listening to what that negative voice says on one side, but you're responding to it with reality, because
Right.
those negative thoughts are generally garbage.
Right.
And they're just there they've just gotten to be noise in your head, and they've gotten turned up to a point where they're causing a problem.
Yeah.
So to reframe those and get those in a more positive light
very important.
is something that's very, very important.
Yeah.
So a lot of our clients find that is a technique that works nicely for
Absolutely.
them and provides them with a structure. And it also helps them identify, there's one of those negative thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something about it right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And eventually the volume gets turned down and they begin to hear it a
And the
little more
positive thought is
positively.
more turned up, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
What about those of us who procrastinate?
Procrastination is a big production stopper.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's really important that you don't judge yourself for it. It is what it is. You're procrastinating. You're certainly not the first person on earth that's ever done it, and you won't be the last. What can you do about it?
Yeah.
Okay? So you just kind of see it as what it is. We teach at CCC that we want the dog wagging the tail, not the tail wagging the dog. We want you in charge of what's getting done in your life. So what we suggest that people do is during their job transition time, they have, first of all, they have a clock, somewhere that they can see it, a big enough clock that they can see across the room. And then we say, we want you to have a timer. And just to make sure that you're on track, we want you to set that timer every 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And when it goes off, check what's going on. Are you doing what you were supposed to be doing in your calendar? Or have you found yourself checking out somebody on LinkedIn or
Right.
on Facebook that you went to high school with that you wonder what they're doing? Or you find yourself checking in to see what you're going to bring to the teacher appreciation breakfast. It's easy to get off task, and it's really kind of a slippery slope because we use the same technology to help us with our job transition activities
Right.
that we do to
For everything else, yeah.
everything else. So
Yeah.
it's a very slippery slope. And sometimes people realize that they're doing it, and sometimes they just don't.
Yeah.
So that's why we suggest the technique where you go every 10 minutes or 15 minutes and check it out. And when the alarm goes off, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I really doing?
Making
Am I
sure you're
being
staying on
productive?
point,
Make
yeah.
sure I'm staying on track. You don't have to feel guilty about it. You don't have to feel anything about it. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. All right, next time I'm going to try it for even less minutes.
Right.
And then the alarm's going to go off, and I'm going to make sure I'm on track.
Yeah.
You examine why that happened. You think about, when did I decide to do that? And it's usually just being a little impulsive or not really focusing in on what you need to do. It's
Right.
not a hard thing to learn.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things you need to learn.
And we all know when we are, right? Because I know I'm guilty. I'm one of those
Absolutely.
procrastinators sometimes.
We
so.
all are. It's a natural thing. Everybody does it. But before you know it, if you practice this technique, you will be able to work 30, 40, 50 minutes without.
And stay focused on that.
It's a building. It's
Yeah,
a building
it's a building
block.
block.
And then take your 5 minutes or your 10-minute break, but don't do it in front of the computer. Get up and move
Get
around.
them good. Ginger, thank you so much. We are already out of time.
Okay.
Can you believe that?
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been great.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you
It's been
so
fun.
much. I also want to thank Ken Kuchar for joining me on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you're unemployed, underemployed, or seeking a career change, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Deal Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web to learn more about the resources available to you as you search for your next success. Thanks so much for watching.